I will never take a cruise out of Puerto Rico again. Now, don't get me wrong, I had actually a great cruise. I went on Royal Caribbean's Brilliance of the Seas for a 7 night Southern Caribbean itinerary. We visited Curacao, overnight Aruba, and we got to visit Tortola for the very first time. It was a great trip because it combined the best of an amazing itinerary and, I think, a terrific value going on Brilliance of the Seas. But the problems I encountered before and after the cruise with the ports really turned me off to cruising from Puerto Rico, and I'd caution everyone to think twice before trying a cruise from here. Now, if you watch my videos in the past, you know I generally don't blow out every little problem out of proportion. I don't turn every issue I run into a "you won't believe how bad it got" video. But as I was waiting for my flight home, I came to the realization I really don't want to cruise from here again anytime soon because of the problems I encountered, and I wanted to offer a warning to let anybody else just think twice, basically, before you go there. The first problem came with the check-in process. Royal Caribbean sails from the Pan American Terminal in San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is across the harbor from Old San Juan. Now, some other cruise lines actually offer cruises from, like, right in Old San Juan, but Royal Caribbean ships only dock there when they're doing a day visit. Yes, on rare occasions, I have heard of a Royal Caribbean ship that is setting sail for a week from those old San Juan cruise terminals, but you really can't bet on it. And every time I've ever sailed to San Juan, it's always been from the Pan American Terminal. Before you reach the terminal, there's a single road in and out for both cruise terminals there. We had a Norwegian ship in Port 2, and the traffic backup added an extra 30 to 60 minutes of waiting. Now, to be fair, others that arrived at the cruise terminal later in the day had less traffic to contend with. But the way I see it, I'm either waiting around my hotel or in the taxi. I'd rather just be on my way. But the traffic is a microcosm of the bigger issue I have with cruising out of San Juan, as you'll clearly see in a little bit, that one little thing can really mess up everything. Now, once we got to the cruise terminal, it was a mess. Lots of people were still waiting to get in a taxi from the previous cruise, and the cruise terminal itself was closed to check-in, and no one was even taking luggage to be checked. I've never seen this before. When I've taken cruises out of anywhere in Florida, or even anywhere in North America for that matter, usually there's a couple of porters, even if you get there ridiculously early, that will take your bags and at least let you check them in. Port cruise terminal not being open is not unusual, but this was like above and beyond what I've usually expected. So we stood around, waited until finally some of the porters were ready to accept bags for being checked in. Actually, I got lucky because the luggage check-in for suites and Pinnacle Club guests opened first, and I was able to get into the shorter line for that. Now it was time for wait for the actual terminal to open. When I've cruised from other terminals, usually 10 a.m. is the time the terminal physically opens to let cruisers begin checking in. Doesn't mean they board, but at least get the line moving. In San Juan's case, though, we waited an extra half an hour before the terminal finally opened its doors. The good news was the ship was ready to start boarding, so there was no waiting inside. We went through the whole check-in process and then immediately got on board the ship. As I said, the cruise was amazing. I was sailing on a 7-night Southern Caribbean itinerary on Brilliance of the Seas. Not only was it a very affordable cruise because we were sailing out of a semi-hard-to-reach port, which helps bring prices down, plus we were sailing on a 24-year-old cruise ship, so all this contributed to a much better value. Plus, my goodness, being able to visit the Southern Caribbean and going to Aruba, Curacao, and Tortola was truly an incredible visit. In fact, my visit to Tortola was the highlight of this sailing because not only was my first time there, but we rented a boat for the day and got a chance to go to a couple of different spots around there. Remember, Tortola is in the British Virgin Islands, not the U.S. Virgin Islands. And one of the key differences here is you get to go to a place called Jost Van Dyke, which is rated among the most beautiful beaches in the world. For first stop was Foxy's, which is like a locals-only area, famous for its bar and its local who started it, I don't know, a bazillion years ago, Foxy, who's still there, by the way. And it's a really, like, super cool, relaxed vibe. I'm on a beach and I'm at a bar with a great view. After that, we went to the Soggy Dollar Bar, which was considered to be one of the most famous places to go in all the Caribbean for really some of the most beautiful beaches out there. It originated in the 70s, but it really is one of these like hidden gems and really loved going there. And then on top of that, we went to Smuggler's Cove, which was its own, again, very secluded beach that we were able to pull up to and enjoy our day. I mean, the weather was fantastic. Even though it was really rocky, I mean, we had an amazing time. And I got to tell you that going to Tortola alone made this cruise worthwhile. I mean, the cruise itself was fantastic. I'm a big fan of Brilliance of the Seas. I think it's a great value. I love the schooner bar on board, and I think it's got a lot of cool things about it. However, unfortunately, things got bad again when we were back off the ship. The morning the cruise came to an end, a new set of problems developed. To be fair, two unrelated, one-off issues collided at the same time. So it may not happen to you, but I'm going to share my experience. First, the Women Run Windward Takes Puerto Rico race was held the same morning as our cruise was disembarking. It was held from 7 a.m. to noon. On the same day, there were 4 ships docked in port. The race took place in an area just south of the cruise terminals and shut down many roads to allow the racers to, do the run. This caused an epic backup of traffic from getting into the terminal. The result was a giant crowd of people waiting for Ubers. I thought I'd beat the issue by just taking a taxi. There were exactly 4 taxis there because no other taxis could physically get into the terminal or the cruise port because of the traffic. So as a result, the taxi drivers realized this and they were jacking up their prices to $25 per person to go to the airport. So that means a family of 4 was asked to pay $100 for the ride, which was being shared, by the way, with another couple and me, each of us paying $25 a head. It was an awful example of extortion, and I really couldn't believe how bad the traffic was. I mean, one family got out and didn't pay for it, had a whole argument with the driver, and the driver just didn't care. Unfortunately, this would actually be the easy part of the day. Over at San Juan's airport, a different disaster was waiting. A partial shutdown of the U.S. government, coupled with the fact the TSA checkpoint in Terminal A was temporarily closed, led to what I've seen the worst airport waits ever. I mean, JetBlue sent an email to warn us the day before, but I'm sure you've gotten those emails before where it's like, please give yourself plenty of time, blah, 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 emails from the airlines. You see it, you delete it. It's just a precautionary warning. But I've never seen lines this bad that looped back and forth with no end in sight. It looked like an absolute disaster, and I really thought I was going to miss the first flight of my life because the line was too long to go through security. Now, luckily, someone at JetBlue told me I could walk over to the next terminal, Terminal B, and go through security there and endure a relatively shorter line and just walk to Terminal A after getting through security. Now, the regular security line wasn't much better in Terminal B, but because I have TSA pre-check, that line, while long, moved quickly. I asked the screening agent if it's like this all the time, and they said the TSA is having a lot of no-shows because they aren't getting paid because of the shutdown. Now, I was able to get through security onto my gate with plenty of time to spare. Nonetheless, though, the anxiety I had about the lines had still occurred. Now, you're watching all of this, and you're saying, okay, Matt, terrible. But the marathon and partial shutdown are one-off events, and someone cruising next month or next year is unlikely to experience those problems. I believe these two issues exacerbated underlying problems with the air and cruise infrastructure of San Juan. Under the best of conditions, San Juan's airport seems to be one problem away from giant backups. I mean, it took almost an hour to get our luggage after we landed there, and it's also a smaller airport that hasn't grown with all the added flights and more airlines going there. As for the cruise terminal, I thought I'd seen the worst cruise terminal experiences in LA or Boston, but neither was as bad as San Juan because of inefficiencies, poor training, and bad infrastructure. The terminal, and this is true of all cruise terminals, by the way, aren't staffed by Royal Caribbean. It's a third party that works there. You don't encounter Royal Caribbean crew members and employees until you actually step foot on the ship. Now, I got lucky. Delays and waits weren't worse. Thank God I had TSA pre-check, but the damage was done for me. I love the opportunity to sail to places like Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Tortola, but there are just too many X factors to deal with in San Juan. I'd rather cruise out of Florida, New York, or almost anywhere else and get whatever itineraries they have if it means avoiding the issues in and around San Juan. If you have a cruise coming up out of San Juan, I recommend you got to plan for the worst. I mean, assume long delays and waits and never use your previous experiences elsewhere as a point of comparison. Otherwise, you're going to be really disappointed. If I'm going off the rails here, if I'm a little too crazy on this, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I really believe, though, that I will avoid cruising out of San Juan, Puerto Rico for the foreseeable future. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this. Have you cruised out of San Juan recently? And did you have a similar experience? And coming up next, I wanted to share with you my experience on board Brilliance of the Seas to at least show you that I had an amazing time on the actual cruise and why a Southern Caribbean cruise is absolutely worth it. Thanks for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.